Allaha.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Today, I am here with my sister, Rolanda. I love her name, Earth Mama Network. I've, I think it's a great opportunity during this Women History Month and any other day to lift each other up and to share what it is that we're doing so that we ourselves can be inspired by one another's work. And it is with that. Is that spirit that I go forth, and I just wanted to talk with my sister Rolanda that she is from California, the West Coast, and I'm here on the East Coast. So Rolanda, tell us who you are, let people know what you're doing, and
Okay. Well, my name is Rolanda Wilkins. I'm the executive director of Earth Mama Healing. It is a nonprofit, and basically I do women and girl empowerment program, class, trips, all over the place. In some cities, I'm a class period. I do something called the Quality of Life Road Trip, where I take young Black girls and we drive throughout the whole U.S. and Canada for like 30 days, looking at the quality of life of Black girls and women. So we go all over the place. It's like a 30-day trip. So I'm constantly trying to develop opportunities to empower girls and to nurture girls so that they would be empowered women. And before that, I worked for the Birthing Project for like 25 years. And that's where we help Black women to have better birth outcomes. Our infant mortality rate is still very high. But a woman that I work for named Catherine Hall, her last name is Trujillo now, she Black women's our infant mortality rate was extremely high at the time, and so she had the idea of matching up a community volunteer with a pregnant teen or woman, and to shelter her through her pregnancy, go to her doctor's appointments, make sure she's eating right, to befriend, like gathering community, like what we used to do, like as a part of our culture. And through that process, you empower her to basically rebirth herself while she's giving birth to her child. So I worked there for 25 years. We built the clinic in Sacramento. In Phoenix, they did a charter school. So it had been replicated across the U.S. about 50 times. And then it's also in, Honduras and different countries in Africa, Canada. Just these were Black women who basically understood that you could get us to do some things around childbirth. There's something about new life coming.
Yes.
That you could be mad at somebody, but if they pregnant, you be like, let's get this baby here. You know what I mean? Like we're waiting on you. Because you could be the one.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So I've always seen women be very involved and just very powerful in terms of new life coming. It's just nothing like it. That's why I feel like with women, we gotta make sure we put that womb in woman, because that's a sacred portal. And everybody don't get to really use the sacred portal.
Yeah.
We get to bring life from one reality to another. But how you treat that sacred womb, like the earth, will determine, how that child will get here. Are we nice to each other? Are we eating well? Are we talking to each other? Are we looking at every child like every child is to Christ?
Amen.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or do we look at them like it's a burden? So, when I see a woman that's pregnant, I get excited. Like, wow, do you know what you're having? Have a seat, So it's just, there's something about new life, and the Birthing Project's tagline was the Underground Railroad for New Life was their tagline.
Yeah.
And so I had the opportunity
Say that again, the Underground Railroad
for new life.
Okay.
So it was around pregnancy. And that's what really gave birth to the work that I'm doing now and continue to do, is that I was nurtured by a bunch of women when I was a teenager. Like my whole life, I've been around elders, but when I was 18, I went to work for the Birthing Project, and I watched these Black women do amazing stuff. Like I watched them build clinics. I watched them, build, like they had an idea for something. They made it come to life. You know what I mean? But I also watched this incredible sisterhood and how we support each other around our dreams and our goals. And at the same time, paving the way for generations some of these women will never see because they became ancestors along the way. So there's something very powerful about that. So it imprinted on me, and that's the work that I do. Like I want girls and women to feel good about themselves. Some of the stuff we see older women go through is because when they were children, they didn't get their needs met.
No one nurtured them,
Yeah, no one nurtured them, you know? So. Yeah, that's the
So
what
this
I
is
do.
like exciting work. It gives me life just to know that you're out there doing that work. It actually, they say it takes a village, and today it does take a village, and we all have to be that village, right? We all have to find our place in there. I am just there's nothing greater than giving life, right? I mean, that is what Christ was all about, is giving new life, and it doesn't have to be always in a birthing situation. It could be
Hmm.
in a community, right?
Yes.
Giving it new life. So talk to me about how you found your voice in the community, and where did that take you?
You know, God, I think before I really found my voice, I was watching a lot. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I always share with young people when I was coming up, I had seen so many people look out for each other. So for me, being this way was a part of my nature. Like, we always took care of each other. We always spoke to each other and greeted each other. You just like I'm in right now at this moment, I'm in Phoenix, and every time I see certain people, they acknowledge me. And I'm like, because I live in California where people
Yeah.
don't always do that. So,
Uh,
and then my partner that I'm rolling with on this trip, she said, that's because these people, most of them are from the Midwest. So if
okay.
you ever been in the South, Southern people always recognize you.
Always, they're
If
very
it's a head nod or good
yeah.
morning, ma'am, or
Eye
so for me,
contact.
I grew up with that. So when I started working with the Birthing Project and women like Catherine Hall and Linda Parsons and Linda Pittman, like I could just go down the list of the women. They were always nurturing me, making me feel like I can do it. And I've always been like a little, nervous. Like I have a certain accent or some words come out a little differently. And they would be like, just say it anyway. Like
Mhm.
they taught me not to be afraid of asking questions. Because
You
sometimes people can make you feel kind of stupid if you're like, well, what is that? I'd be like, girl, what is that?
know,
So, but they made me feel empowered.
Howard.
They really nurtured me to have a voice. And then it became a time where it was like, now it's your turn. Because
I
you've
was
been
going to
watching
ask
us
you that.
long enough.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. I'm reminded of someone who said to me in a lifetime ago, everyone can run if they're just taught and encouraged to crawl, right?
Mm,
Which says to me that anybody can do the work, right? You don't have to be appointed by another person. You just have
mm,
to have that call and desire to want to.
right.
So you talked about nurturing, but then you talked about just the curiosity of being able to want what's going on and being aware of our community. And so I think that's where um, sometimes it's hard to find your voice because you're waiting for someone else to call you out, right? To call you
Mm-hmm,
out when God has already called you out, or the call is already on you, and you're trying to figure out where to jump in,
mm-hmm.
how we can help. So, how can people who want to be able to do the same work that you're doing, giving new life to newborns as well as to new communities?
Mm-hmm.
How can other young girls and women get on board?
I always say just follow that part of you that you know is right. Like, it's not like you go and set up a program. Every time we speak to someone, we're already doing it. When
Okay.
we acknowledge each other's being, we're already doing it. That's like when, sometimes when you're born into the world, because the creator it just is. It don't really need your permission.
Yeah, yeah.
But human beings have a way of shutting people down and making you feel like you don't belong here. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
also the human spirit is so resilient, it can also make you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to
Where you're
be.
supposed to be. Oh,
You know
that's
what I'm saying?
But that is just definitely the truth.
Yeah.
But confident, giving people that confident. That everybody need a boost, okay? I mean, if you're gonna hang around only with the people you get along with and y'all know how to
Oh,
talk the same language, I mean,
right.
that's really, you know, I'm being for real. That
Yeah.
is just one thing that I look at when it comes to the fact that you don't have to know me personally, Yolanda, but the fact
Mm-hmm.
that we know the work that each other are doing, and we are encouraging versus giving permission. And so
Right.
that's why I wanted you to speak on what it was like for you to just be able to
So I'll
show
say
up.
this. I think the first time I really began to understand the power of words, was when I was a kid, and I would always, my name is Rolanda. Sometimes people hear it, I've been in other countries, and as soon as I say Rolanda, people go Yolanda, right? But it don't really mean anything. Like it doesn't. I'm like, I think it's something in the language. I mean that we hear the R and it turns into a Y or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember growing up having elders say, "Hey, beautiful. Hey, sweetie. Hey." And really, as I got older, I realized that first of all, they couldn't remember my name. But they also, when they talked to me with those words, it
Yeah.
lifted my vibration up. Even if I was having a funky day, and
Mm-hmm.
they would be like, "Come here, beautiful. Why are you looking like you're too pretty to be frowning?" They had a way in it to make you feel like, well, wait a minute, like let me smile, like yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. You
Yeah.
know, so even when I'm working with girls, and sometimes my girls could be kind of hardcore, I'll be like, "You are gorgeous. Look at your, I'm gonna get them dimples," and immediately they start busting out laughing. But it's like that's just words. You don't need
Communication.
anything special, special.
Yeah.
Specialness is in the way we greet each other. I
Yeah.
always say, check the way you talk to each other, how you interact with people. See that you have to first take care of you first. And
Yeah.
I found that because I did a lot of traveling in places I don't even speak the language, but because the energy of me is just kind of non-judgmental and like I'm just happy to be here, or I always say please and thank you to people, or I mean, if even if in a restaurant and somebody serve, thank you so much. I want them to, you don't have to serve me. I mean, I know it's your job, but you're doing it with such a smile. Excuse me. So it's kind of like I think I learned that watching the people in my life as I was growing up, and some of them were domestic workers, they were maids and chauffeurs, but there was something about that care that when they seen you, it made you stand up as a human being and to feel some way about yourself. So that's all I really can give you. And so sometimes I feel like our greatest lesson is not to let people rob you of that.
Mm, mm. You know, we find ourselves, people like you and I, women like you and I, and we talk about the legacy of Black women. And we find ourselves being advocates when we didn't even know that's what we were showing up to be. You know what I mean? Like being
Right
the
on.
voice for those who are unable to speak. And especially when you talk about um, the children in the community, um, causing young girls to smile, giving them hope, and not letting their situation determine, the outcome of their day. So we're in a virtual world now, but how did you keep that going? What was that like for you?
Oh, to me, it was just so before this whole virtual thing, I was always keeping up with people. Like I have a list. Now the list is smaller. But when I was like in my 20s, I had this list of elder women that I sent birthday cards to, Christmas cards to, Happy New Year, whatever. Every time I would travel, I would drop them a postcard because I realized that people still like to get mail.
Yeah.
Like mail, like hey, how you doing, Miss So whatever. Now my list, I probably think I have, because most of them now are ancestors. So now it's probably about 4 people left on the list. You know what I mean? And one
Yeah.
as I speak right now that's going through her transition. So for me, I always, and all my family is on the East Coast. So I always figured out I would call them, I would send letters, so for me, I think that in this virtual world, it gives you the time now to
Mm-hmm.
make space to keep in contact with people.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So for me, I
Yeah.
love to do that. Like
Yeah.
I like my girls, I'll drop them a card. Like, I'll get a stack of cards out the dollar store and write like inspirational quotes and poems and drop it in the mail. And they'd be like, Mama Ro, cause they call me Mama Ro. When I got your card, I was kind of in a depressed state. Then I got your card and it made me smile. You know what I
Wow.
mean? So
Yeah.
we still have the ability to do that. This is just
Yeah.
a virtual thing. This is nice, but people still want that human touch.
You know, you reminded me of an article I was reading yesterday that about our incarcerated, and I don't have all the details. I just know I looked at the article and I just shook my head one more time. Our incarcerated brothers and sisters, how they are monitoring the mail. You know what I mean? And not realizing how important it is. And monitoring the mail meaning they may not get all the mail that's sent to them.
Mm.
And that people on the end who are monitoring the mail and also monitoring the one who's sending the mail. I mean, it's just so much out there. They don't realize the significance and the importance of people, the recipients of mail for those who are incarcerated, how much that means to them to be able to touch something that has been touched by someone who they love, another human touch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, like you said, everyday life, we are reminded by those, um, we are given life, should I say, by those
Mm-hmm.
who continue to reach out to us, those we continue to communicate with. And like you said, it's in this space that we can now be intentional about who it is that we are encouraging and who's encouraging us, you know? Before, life had been driven by our commitments and our obligations, right? Not always the ones that we established. So talk to me about those rewarding moments for the ones who go back to, you talked about the birthing project. You've been doing it for 25 years plus. Talk to me about some of the rewarding moments for the young women who you helped and give birth and give life to.
Well, it was just awesome being a support person. Even if I was supporting the person who was basically supporting somebody else. So we had something called Sister Friends, and Sister Friends basically, um, we trained them, we matched them up with the pregnant or parenting team. Um, and it was just nice seeing when a woman went into labor, she did not go alone. When
Mm-hmm.
she came in for her doctor's appointment, she didn't come in alone. Because historically, over these last couple of decades, Black women have always been doing stuff by themselves. I ran a clinic. I helped to run a clinic that we built, and we would watch. If the Latino woman came in, she usually came in with the father of a child or something like that. If the Asian woman came in, she came in with, grandmama, somebody. But the Black women would come in and they would be alone. And they would be a little upset, and they
Mm-hmm.
may have a bunch of kids with them. But there is something when someone is with you when you're coming in to check up on yourself. Do you
So
understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
And we
yeah,
would sell it. To me, that made me feel good. Because when I
yeah.
looked at her, I looked at myself. See, I always feel like if you treat people as a reflection of yourself, then you would have to show up different.
Yeah, it needs to be contagious. Like you need to
Right.
give off the same energy that you don't want to give you. And I think that is where we look at, because I do a lot of meditating on transformational leadership, like leading from the heart. Like not only
Right
do
on.
we have to get involved, but we have to be able to transform those who transform those who are not our ally to become our allies, so that we could partner in resources. Some of the very ones who are standing in the way are the ones who would benefit from that kind of work, So everybody we talk to
Yeah.
is not always outside. Don't always see things as we see it. So changing hearts and minds in regards to what you're doing. Talk to me about some of those instances where everything hasn't been like easy.
For me, it's just it's in breathing. For me, I'm just being really honest. Like seeing someone and making sure they got what they need, or greeting someone, or I love it when I've seen young girls connect to other young girls. When I do like their road trip every year, so it's me and a bunch of young ladies who are driving throughout the U.S. making all of these stops, and it's really incredible. But to hear them have conversations, and then the young person really gets it. You know what I mean? It makes me feel hopeful. I feel like everything's going to be okay. Because I always feel like at some point in your life, you're the person that's the recipient of all the water and all the sunlight. And then there's a time where you have to take what you've grown into, and then you have to implant that into someone
Or
else.
into someone else, yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, that's what it's always about. So when I see now, I have young ladies who are mothers, who are wives, who have children, and they always say, "You really, just the little gems you gave me
Mm-hmm.
impacted who I became as a woman."
Mm-hmm.
Like I've just never seen life the same because of the way you took time with us, you laughed with us, you explained some of the things that my mama was going through that I didn't understand why my mama was that way.
Yeah.
Or I talked a lot about relationships, and sometimes you'll hear a girl say, "My mom just think it's all about her," and I'll always would say to them, "See how you in here, we in this discussion, and you learning about how you feel. Maybe your mama didn't get that."
Well, I was going to say, I'll tell you that as we grow up, life was just happening so much for our
Mm-hmm.
parents, that they probably didn't take the time that, not everyone, but for those of us who can say, there could have been more opportunities where we spent time. My family is a close family. I'm not saying we don't have our ups and downs, but
That's right.
I can go back and recall the moments where you look at and you compare You look around and see what's going on, like without judgment,
Right.
but it doesn't resonate with me then as it resonates with me now.
Yeah.
I look around and I hear people talk about being from single family home versus a 2-parent home, being a latchkey kid, and how all those things just kind of impacted us one way or another, in our growing up. And so what do we take from that? What do we do with that? How does that influence, how does our social location from where we came from, those things that make up our experiences, make us who we are today, turning things around or either building on what it is that we ourselves have experienced? I think that's really why I wanted to be able to talk to you, is because this earth is not okay.
No.
There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. I I think the earth is in divine order. See, I think human beings may not make it, but the earth will be okay because she could clean herself off in a minute. Don't Please don't think that somehow it's like we're like her children, and she's like, what do I do with these people? Because now they're getting on my nerves. So I feel like sometimes because Mother Nature is so powerful, like you know what I mean. I mean, when you look at like how tornadoes and earthquakes and the planet's still gonna be here. Now, there's us as a species, as human beings, will we be here? Because we will probably destroy ourselves, to be honest with you, unless we learn how to treat each other. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to, but we do have to treat each other with a little kindness. If you don't like us a person, I'm not going to make you like them. Just going to move to the side. It's okay. Like stay out of people's way if that's not your way. You see what I'm saying? I feel like the little lessons that some of our elders who weren't as educated, did not have all the opportunities, even they knew that. That was how they were able to survive. It was like, this person over here is crazy. We're not. Look, there was a time if somebody had mental health issues, we knew how to sit with that person. I'm originally from Philadelphia. We had people in our community that were a little slow, but in our community, we knew how to take care of them. One of my really good mentors told me that she had a brother that was slow. And she said she didn't even realize he was slow until she went off to college and started studying. And she was like, I think our brothers have always been slow. And you know what her mama told her? She said, look, it just means it's just going to take you a little bit longer. That means that he's going to have to, it's going to take him a little longer to do some things, but he's going to be okay. He went on and got married. He had children. He worked on his job for 35 years. This was a person who was supposed to be slow. You understand what I'm saying? But because that mama took that time, it was like Ray Charles' mom. And she was like, look, you're going to have to make it without me. So I have to know when to back up so you will be okay. I think sometimes when you experience trauma, you be so busy trying to cushion the fall that you kind of make the person a cripple. It's like, you're going to be okay. I watch babies do it all the time. Babies would be like, get out of my way. We'd be like, oh, I do that with my great nieces and nephews. They'd be like, let me cut that up. And my one little nephew would be like, I'm just not going to eat it. He would go, he's like about 2. He'd just be like, I ain't going to eat it. So I'd be like, well, let me just go ahead and let him do it.
Huh? I like repeat what you said about the trauma. You said when
you experience trauma, you find yourself trying to cushion people because of your own trauma. See what I'm saying? It makes it harder for you to get out the way.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's like I always tell my girls, your mother probably never wants you to get your heart broken because her heart's been broken before. So that's why she's on you like that. Don't do this, don't do that. And it's like, either way, you still gonna go on out there and do what you gonna do because that's just the way the universe works. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna do it, but you'll be trying to cushion the fall. It reminds me, I'm a movie buff. So it reminds me of the scene is the old Sparkle. When the mama looked at her daughter and looked at the man and she knew this man was no good, but it was nothing she could really do because that was her daughter's journey. She knew this fool was no good. She knew it, but she was like, all she could do is give him the look your mama give you when she don't like something. But she knew.
And but and I know, and you know how parents can look at you and give you that look, and you know what that look means, right?
My mother was famous for that.
I want to talk about going back to trauma. We have experienced trauma this past 12 months plus in regards to being socially distanced, separated, and for some isolated, And
Mm-hmm.
so it takes a special kind of woman, Black woman, to
Yeah.
be able to keep doing what you're doing to nurture those in the community. Not look at it as a challenge, because again, this is what you were born to do, right? You've been doing it for
Mm-hmm.
so long. What advice would you be able to give other people to be able to reach out to folks, to be able to encourage folks? What kind of actions can we take that will create that touch or assimilate that touch? You know what I mean?
I don't. So here's my thing with that. Yeah, I get you, but here's my thing with that. See, I think this whole quarantine was the creator of the universe way of saying be
You
still.
know?
Everybody stop. You ever see chaos and then your big mama coming to be like, everybody stop. And then everybody
Yeah.
stops. And she then I look at y'all. Just take a look. This is chaotic. So
Hmm.
I think even though there's a quote that says God has a plan, the devil has a plan, but God's the best of planners. That is like the key thing. Like everything had to stop.
Yeah,
And then most of us started taking inventory. And then people started drawing in. I've seen people say that they did things that they would have never done if the quarantine hadn't happened.
that's right. Oh
They
no,
mended, they mended fences with people that they was mad at. They picked up, they thought it was the end. It wasn't, you know what I mean? Because nobody planned it, nobody knew this was going to happen. So the trick is like, I really believe we know what to do when it's time to do it. I don't care what anybody says. It's kind of like you being in a pool and you're drowning. Do you wait for me to say, put the life in? You're like, I'm gonna swim.
yeah.
I'm gonna swim today.
So
So
it's an
I feel like
opportunity for a reset, right?
right,
Opportunity for as opposed to it being a challenge or a defeat, it's really opportunity, because
yes,
everybody gets to go to the starting line at the same time, right?
right,
Everybody gets to either start over or reset. And I think one of
yeah.
the things is that we live with such a some people live with such an expectation what their experience is going to be like, and then what they actually experience is different, and that trauma right there continue. They have to get over the trauma. Okay, I'm like, get over it. It is what it is today. Go ahead and lament for a while, but you got to get beyond the limit, because it's going to be okay.
And our ancestors were the masters in doing that because they went through some real stuff. Not saying that we ain't going through stuff, but they, man, they were confined.
Hmm.
I'm talking to you right now from a hotel room at the Hyatt Regency in Phoenix. You know what I mean? I get to drive throughout the whole U.S. with young people, and I don't have a piece of steel in my car. You understand what I'm saying? We follow Harriet Tubman's trail. That's what part of the trip is about. We go to the church that she went to in Canada.
Hmm.
I mean, it's like, can you imagine being like not knowing where you are, can't move, can't do this, can't do that, can't be yourself, can't. And we get to live in such a freedom, and that's because a price have been paid that is so heavy. We can't even fathom what that was really like.
You know, telling your story. The reward in hearing what you're saying and inspiring, even the opportunity just to sit here, you didn't make time and you're traveling to be able to keep a
Yeah.
commitment that we had agreed upon. And then you be
Mhm.
able to say, I'm still doing the work over here in another state. I'm like, you're where? What time zone are we in? And,
Yeah.
so it's kind of having that desire to keep pushing forward. But it's also one that you just want other people to understand that we know it's not going to always be what you wanted it to be, but it
Right.
is what it needs to be for you to keep working. So, what advice can you give to those who want to do what you're doing? Like where are you in Sacramento that people could reach
Yeah.
out to you?
I'm at the Florence Square. That's where my office is located on 24th and Florence, in South Sacramento. But I work everywhere. I mean, as long as I got this computer, I work everywhere. I work inside the juvenile hall. I work inside the schools. I work everywhere. I always say, just do it, family. Like, start where you are. Don't make your thing all big. Everything has to start from somewhere. If you just gather with the people in your immediate family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have sisters, aunties. If you're on the block, talk to the young people in your immediate surrounding. Look at what they're doing. Be a help, not necessarily with the judgment. There is something about, I think what I learned most from older women was just how to be able to sit with
Uh,
people and sit for people. You know what I mean? And just be the ear. You know what I mean? I don't have to tell somebody they don't look good, that they don't look good, because they already know that. They really don't need for me to validate how they feeling. But what I have learned is that people want you to give them some sunshine,
yeah.
Brothers like, hey, beautiful, hey, gorgeous, how you doing? What you have for lunch? Or like there's something in those, because right now what we need on the planet is for us to treat each other like we're all connected. That's
Yeah,
really what all of this is about.
it's out.
Like it's about reconnecting.
Yeah.
We know we should be each other's sisters and brothers keeper. We know that.
And no matter where we're positioned at right now, what state or what industry or what business, we all have a gift, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we need each other. We need each other. And so I know you are working with young girls. I know you work
Mm-hmm.
with the Birthing Project. What are you currently working on right this very second in
So
Arizona?
right now. So I came to Arizona to connect with some folks. I had some different meetings. There was a sister that I work with at the Birthing Project who's here, who's doing some awesome work with prison reform. I mean, coming in my support to her, talking about some collaborative things that we can do. That's kind of what I do. One of the things I've kind of evolved into is that, like, 'cause I also do some work with some young people in South Africa, and I sponsor a lot of girls in South Africa. I have a mentor there that young sister that's a teacher, helping her there. I'm one of those people. If you tell me you're working on something and you're gonna need something to help that get started, my job is to bring the resource. Let me figure this out. Because somehow people made us believe in this country that we don't have anything to give, but we really have
Mm,
everything to give.
wow. Now that
We
right
have
there is a
everything.
yes, that's a mouthful. I think that right there is a medicine that we really need to be taking into
Yeah,
taking each individual level. Is that we have a lot to give.
so
We have
much.
come through a lot. We have survived a lot. We have fought a lot. We have achieved a lot. Even though the more we achieve, it seems like the more there's changed, the more there hasn't changed. But nevertheless, the fight is still ours, meaning that we have to continue to show up. We have to continue to speak up. And that is where I really believe that our strength come from, is being able to share what it is that we're doing, share the challenges, because not all of it is opportunity. A lot of it is
No.
some challenges, right, for us to
Oh
overcome.
yeah. But challenges that's how you know you're moving.
Woohoo!
That's how I see it. Challenge lets you know that you're moving. See, if
You know,
you're standing still, you really don't have no challenge.
wow,
Because
yeah,
but when you're moving, you're supposed to have challenges.
challenges.
I mean, come on, think about it. You're
Yeah.
supposed to be, what I'm gonna do with this, or what you. That's how you know you move. It's kind of like when people cry. That's how I know that they're alive. But if
We
you
know,
stand in there straight faced it, I don't know I don't know what's going on.
we
You
know
know what I
that.
mean? Like say
Yeah,
something, sneeze, or you a statue. Like what's happening? So for me, it's like no, we're gonna throw that out because that's almost like living like as a dead person when you can't show any emotion. You can't. Everybody struggles. Everybody. That's just as a part as when things are easy. They're like twin halves of the same whole.
we know. I
So
think that.
sometimes things is easy, sometimes things is a struggle. But
Well,
all of it is, I just think all of it is divine order.
well, that's all I'm gonna
Divine
say.
order.
It's all about how we show up. Are we going to show up as who we really are, showing our wounds and showing our wounds and our hurt, or showing the wound that has been healed, showing other people that you can make it. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
okay to talk about how you were once wounded, but now I'm healed, because people need to know that there is a process for moving forward and beyond what your other state was into a new state. Like giving
I
life.
know.
When you talk about life, there's nothing greater than giving life to something old or something dead, you know?
And I also find when people show up in their wounds, it's because they need something.
Mm,
And maybe they don't know how to say, and it took me a while to learn that. I'm gonna be honest. So I'm like, why is this person, it's like this person didn't get their needs met.
mm.
It's kind of like this is what I had to learn about food because my thing was food. So I always felt like I was never gonna have enough, even though my mom always made enough. It was crazy. But I think sometimes when you have this feeling that you like maybe I'm not gonna get mine, then you want everything. But if you know somebody's gonna take care of you, you don't even have to rush to eat fast to get seconds because seconds will be there.
It'll be there.
Some of us have that feeling of no one's going to ever look out for me. So I have to, and that's for some Black women, that is our life. No one ever says, let's make sure everybody gets enough. I'm from old school. I'm
Yeah,
going to make enough so all of us get a taste if that's all I have. I'm
yeah.
not going to give this person a big portion and then you may get a sniff. It's like there's always enough.
You
And
know,
some of us grew up and we didn't get that.
one thing I love about Black women, is that we can read a room, right?
Oh,
We can read a room, and then we know how to go and gather what resources it is to make sure that everybody in that room needs are met to the best of your ability, you know? And when I say read a room, I don't mean four walls. I mean,
no,
wherever
no.
it is that we are planted, being able to look around and seeing what the needs are, and then responding to that need, calling your girlfriends, starting a new project. I mean, this is where we have had to be able to feed our own community, you know? And we're still going to have to continue to show up, because we're still going to have some of those pharaohs out there that don't try to stand in our way.
Hey,
We are still going to have people. Not everybody is your friend, and we're going to have to
hey,
still be able to speak up and show up, and not being afraid. And that's what I wanted to kind of end on, is like not being afraid to walk in your purpose in regards to just continue to transform hearts and mind, but more so not being afraid, not waiting for permission, right?
mm-hmm.
Because we're
See,
in a
I think,
season of hope
yeah,
for me.
right on. I think everything has its place. Like I always say, the devil was an angel that fell from grace, but he still works for God. See,
Mm,
that's not a job I want to have.
mm.
You know, I want to be the person that's bringing in the good spirit, but we know somebody has to bring in the bad spirit. Not gonna be me. You know,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's his job, not
that's
my
his job.
job.
No,
That's
God,
his
I got you. He has
So
an
I just
assignment
feel
every
like,
day, just like everybody else, and so we have to be able to be
and my
grounded in
thing
what it.
is, when he's doing his job, I gets out the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. It's like, nope, I'm just not gonna do that. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be over here. I feel like everything, when I say divine order, I absolutely mean that. My job is that I'm not a fan of that kind of energy, so I get out the way. You know, you're not gonna ever see me on the show where I'm disrespecting black women. Not my job, because
Not my
that's a
job.
reflection of me. For some people, that's their job. You see what I'm saying? So for me, let me tell you, right now I'm reading Sissy Tyson's book. If you haven't got Sissy Tyson's book, as I am, please read her book.
Okay.
So she basically talked about being responsible for the roles she decided to take. Now, I grew up watching a lot of black movies. Sister is one of my favorite actresses. And when I hear people say, well, that's how I pay the bills, everybody has to pay the bills. You can
Mm-hmm.
still make a conscious decision to how you want to leave your imprint. And so when I look back at Sissy Tyson's roles, they were all very strong roles. There would be sometimes she wouldn't get a job because there were no roles out there for her to play
Right.
that fit her caliber. But that's all called free will. See,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part where you have to blame other people because you're not quite there yet in terms of really walking in your truth and
Right.
being a reflection of the Most High, whatever you call it. But when you want to be like, I don't have a choice, that means you're not quite there yet. But when you are like really in co-creation, you can be like, you know what? I so want to have so forth and so on, but I'm really not going to eat this slop. So I'm going to have to wait. And
Well,
that's not ever easy. That's not
right.
ever an easy thing to do. But if you really, that's what I learned. I came from those women who made hard choices. Some of them were alone. Some of them had to make do with what they have, but they lived their life in a respectable way. Because it just wasn't worth it. You could have streets paved with gold
Oh,
and your soul feels so empty.
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of where I said we're in a season of hope, right? Well, hold on, don't give up.
Mm,
Hold on, don't give up. Because for me, this we every day is an opportunity for us to get up and do something for someone else. The greatest reward is to make you feel better is when you're doing something for somebody else. Um, so what keeps you up at night there, Rolanda? I know I work with missing persons. I work in regards to giving voices to missing persons, creating new legislation because the current laws are outdated. They still only requiring, they moved it from 18 to 21 as mandatory reporting, but everyone, in my belief, and philosophy should be able to be reported should they go
I
missing,
agree.
regardless of age. And so I'm working to make sure that as a leader in the community that we can make that happen up on the hill. And so that's what keeps me up at night and make me get up
Well,
in the
keep
morning.
What keeps me up at night is black femicide.
Say it
What
again.
keeps me up at night is black femicide, and black femicide is the murdering of black girls and women, particularly like right now we're at, for the year since January, we're at 267, and that was the count I had a couple on Sunday, so we know what it is now. So these are black women and girls who have been murdered by the hands of someone who looks like them, and most of them have been black men. And it just irks my spirit that black folks will sit up here and be so mad at white cops and white people, but show no kind of discernment to us and how we're treating each other and how we're murdering black girls and women. Like it's insane to me. See, I grew up with people who had responsibility for oneself. They
Yeah.
didn't ask white people to give them, so they knew how these people felt about them. So they weren't waiting on them. So for me, that's what keeps me up when it feels like sometimes I'm belonging to a community where we'll make other things important more than the life bringers.
Well,
If
how?
you kill the life bringers, if you kill
Right,
the
right.
sacred portals, you will not come to the planet. Your life will be over. So when it's over for the women, it's over. You cannot reproduce yourself. You will not exist. So the fact that we haven't paused for that yet, the fact that we haven't been outraged, and this has nothing to do with white supremacy, or that has nothing to do with it. When a black man murders a black woman or a girl, one man murdered 5 black girls from ages 9 to 3. I share all this stuff all the time. And it's just kind of like black folks is like, well, the man was troubled. Man, give me a break. You if you're not with her no more, leave her. But you don't have to murder her, because when you murder someone, you really cannot be forgiven, because that wasn't your life to take. You could beat somebody up, you could drop them off, but you don't take a life, because you don't do that, because you're not really God. You just can't do that. So for me, it's like that's what keeps me up, is when we don't see how we are with each other. And then we don't want to take responsibility for it as a people. We just can't unify around white cops all day. Like we're not gonna get nothing done. Let's just be honest. Our
Yeah.
ancestors did not wait for these people to free them. Harriet Tubman made 19 trips. She wasn't waiting for white people to say, now you can all leave. She's like, we out.
We got to
And
free
I've been on her path before. We
ourselves.
drive the path in an air-conditioned van. They didn't have that. Here's a woman who found her way and came back and got people. She could have went on about her business.
We
So
know
there
people
is
don't talk
something,
about it.
yeah.
We don't talk about it because we don't. How do I say? It's not easy for some people to be able to talk about the situation for fear of backlash, of being accused of talking about black on black crime, and that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that there are situations that unless you know about them, you don't know about them. One thing, people can go missing, and the
Well, that's another topic.
and I'm talking about the fact that when you say someone is murdered, uh, they may have gone missing first. You know what I mean?
Yo, definitely.
That's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And so it one thing leads to another, and if we don't know how to, we don't know the background, and we don't know the foundation of how to report someone missing, and that allows everyone to be missing, then we won't be able to help those who are in trouble, like and end up murdered. You know what I mean? And
I
that's why
agree.
they say the first 24 and 48 hours is the most important hours, but yet they make you wait. I just didn't understand that
I
law
agree.
until they changed it. And so that's what I'm trying to say, that
I agree that's
we're not,
important.
yeah, we're not talking about that murdering black girls is,
It's real. Last
I can't
year,
even finish saying the
yeah,
sentence.
last year it was like almost like 1,200 something black women were murdered at the hands of black men. Murdered. Do you hear me? So for me, it's like I'm not trying to lessen it. I don't care about if it makes you feel uncomfortable. You should feel uncomfortable. I say it and it just makes my blood boil, because there's something wrong. And the crazy part is they're not being killed by the Klan. Because they tell you shooting women in the face, shooting them in the belly. Like these are like, something's wrong here. Something's terribly wrong here. Now there's babies. Now they're not just killing women and little girls. Now there's little babies, 18 months to 12 months, 5. What's going on? So for me, it's kind of like that's an energy on the planet. And there was a time where if you did stuff like that, your conscience would eat you alive and you would have to say something. Like your
Yeah,
mama would not be trying to hide you out. She'd be
Yeah.
like, baby, you didn't, I don't produce stuff like this. You couldn't come through me doing this kind. Like, I don't even see this. Like, well, it's my son. Yeah, that's why you should make him do the right thing. Like, come on, you used to be the moral in our families. You
You
did
know,
stuff you never told your mom. It's like, my mom would never find this out. You know what I'm saying? So
it takes
I
my
don't know.
breath
That's what
away.
keeps me up at night. I'm sorry. That was your
No,
question.
no. Listen, yeah, that is that gives me a pause for all the things that are going on. I think about this. We're in a pandemic where everybody had been pretty much shut in, and yet
Yeah.
the headlines, people missing, people being murdered, have seeped away from the headlines. You know what I mean? Because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
my greatest concern right now is what is really going on, because they can't make the headlines. How do we get the word out? And when we come out of this into a new normal, what is that going to look like when we talk about domestic violence, when we talk
Yeah.
about missing persons? What is that going to look like? Are we ever going to really know the whole story, everything that happened? Whew.
And what will our descendants say about us? See,
Yeah.
for me, and I'm gonna have to wrap up in a minute, but for me, my mother's great grandmother, which is two greats for me, and her name was Winnie Parks, and she was born in 1817. She was an enslaved African in Fairfax County, Virginia. I've been to her gravesite. I have a picture of her. And this woman had kids, and the only one she made it out during slavery. She had like 4, 5 children that she had after slavery. She lived to be 103.
Mm.
So I know all of their stories. So I can talk about what they've done, how they left Virginia, how they came up into Pennsylvania. We have a house in our family to this day. The women were brilliant. The women were smart. They were go-getters. Like I know all of their stories. My one great grandmother was married 3 times, and it was just kind of like the way she built her family. So I like to think when this is all over for me and I'm going on to wherever the next mission is or whatever, then I would hope my nieces and nephews and people I've touched, when they say my name, it's like, we supposed to be doing something because Mama Ro would have been doing something.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? I don't
exactly.
want them to be feeling shame when they say my name, like,
Yeah,
she murdered 20 people. Well, I don't even want to say her. Because in some cultures, when you're a bad energy, they don't mention your name at all.
gotcha.
They don't even want to whisper your name. They were like, it was that person. Like they don't even want to, because the energy is so bad. Like when they have the blackened stools in Ghana, it's like these were the bad kings. So
Hmm.
we never want to say their names. I want them to look back and like, this is who Mama Ro was. This
Yeah,
is what she would have did. I don't want them to think about me and think of an excuse. Like, no, we supposed to be taking care of each other. How the babies doing? How the elders doing? Are we treating each other right? That's what I want associated with
yeah.
me.
Talk to one another on a daily basis and take care of one another. Well, I just want to thank you. I know you got to get on the road and catch a plane back to California. You are doing the work, and I just wanted to thank you again for helping us to
Thank you.
highlight the legacy of Black women doing the
Thank
work
you.
out there and still traveling. And hey, listen, I'm rooting you. I'm rooting for you in
Thank
regards to
you.
side to side. We all got to be able to show up somewhere, and you're doing that. And so, thank you so much for just giving new
Thank
life,
you.
for using
Thank you.
your voice and not waiting for permission. So bless you. And we will be in touch again. So just stand
Yes,
by
we
for
will.
a second. Let me end this broadcast. Everyone, thank you for signing in. Thank you for your comments. I love you. We'll be back in 2 weeks.